go down just a little bit, and we'll go back up. Just yeah, now we're in the right area. Let's see. I want to go down to the weight, just below the weight calculation. Next one, discussion.
Okay.
We need to change the 1416.8 to 1288 pounds.
Okay.
And I've already done it on mine, so I'm going to send you another one.
Okay.
And that would put it at 585.4 kilograms based on what Scott sent us.
Okay. So you came to 1,200 pounds, 200 pounds less than Scott based upon the paperwork that you found about the angle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, not even with the angle. I couldn't find anything where the angle would, where you use the angle for calculations on weight.
Okay.
But I looked over his numbers again, and it's got where he's comparing yours, and he does his area factor.
Okay.
He says 4 times 5.5 times 2, and he puts it at 40 inches squared. But that's actually 44 inches squared. So that brings the weight down to 1288 when you plug it into the next part of the calculation he sent.
Okay. And I'd be curious to see his reaction to that or his response.
Yeah, I think it was just a minor little thing. But where I put that about the patellar contact surface area is going to be just up a little bit. If you can scroll up for me.
You bet.
Well, right. It's the discussion part. A little bit further down.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, right in. Actually, go up just a little bit more. Keep going. Right in here. Well,
okay.
So I put figure 2, which is above, demonstrates multiple asymmetric horizontal lines or ridges in the upper tibia fibula area below the knee. The lines, now here I changed them from ridges to lines because that's more correct lines. The lines are suggestive of tension lines seen in humans and primates. So basically, if you just bent your knee, you could see those lines, horizontal lines on your skin. The lines extend from the medial to lateral margins of the cast. The lines correlate with features seen in the Almoon video.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go back and play that video and you'll see these same lines that you've got the picture of right here. The superior inferior distance or separation between the lines is a function of knee position. Is it flexed, extended, or relaxed? If the knee is in a flexed position, as is suggested by the cast, then the distance would be increased. If relaxed, then the distance would be less than in a flexed position. The angle of the subject suggests a flexed position, which would increase the contact area of the knee surface. So in flexed position where the knees kind of, the lower legs kind of bent
just
back.
Like just like your knuckle would do.
Right. So it gives it more contact surface area. In this position, the patella is in a more distal position in the trochlear groove with knee flexion. Okay. So that's kind of important because that would be something pretty hard to hoax, because if you have something that's man-made and you flex it to make that impression, you're not going to have the change in the contact area. You won't see those tension lines change because they won't be there, because nobody's going to think to put small little tension lines around there. So those are all things that you can use to differentiate between something, man-made material versus a living creature making these. So all that just based off of just what's available in the cast itself for us to look at.
Okay.
So that contact surface area was the last thing that I added. And then sitting here looking at stuff, I realized later on, I didn't make that correction on the last one I sent you about the weight calculations. If you scroll down a little bit
You got it.
and just go to that section where it talks about weight calculation right there, this would be something Scott would be able to write about based on this. But looking at his and I had a question for him on this because his formulas deal with the depth of the impression and the area to come up with weight. And I haven't, and that may be one of the formulas he has working for Boeing, which is great, but I haven't been able to see anything, that gives me gives me an option to calculate this based on what we have.
Right. And without the, the absence of him out at the location hinders this a little bit because he only really has our word. Let me see if I can get him on here. Here he is.
Okay.
All right, Scott, can you hear me? And do you have a camera? Let me see if asked to start video. Let's see if he logs on here. It takes some time, a second for him to do it.
Okay.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
There you are, man. Are you calling in or are you in front of a camera?
I'm in front of a camera. I got my computer on.
Okay.
Let me go start my video thing here.
Oh, there you are. Cool. All right.
Hey, Scott.
Hey, how you doing? Nice to meet
Good.
you.
Nice meeting you.
Yeah. So thanks for coming on, guys. Darrel may join us. He's rushing back home, in which case, he can answer some questions along here too. But just to catch up, I really appreciate you guys showing interest and digging into this because we just don't have the wherewithal to do the kind of things that you guys have done, including from a medical standpoint and a mathematician, engineer standpoint. And you guys want to talk about a million other things other than these knee impressions that are now 2 years old. And I get that, but just in short,
There, that should be better.
Joe had some specific questions here, so I'm going to let you two talk a little bit about this, and then we can move to other territory.
On your weight calculation, you had it at coming up at 16.8 pounds.
Yeah.
If you look at you have your copy of the calculations in front of you?
Actually, I don't. Let me see. Let me get them on the phone here.
Okay.
I seem to have misplaced the original. I probably put them in some place where I would never forget them, and now they're gone.
I could probably, while you guys are talking, I could look for them too, Scott. So you guys go ahead, and then I will.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll look while you guys talk.
I got it on my phone here, the one you sent me.
Mm-hmm.
So.
So just let me know when you got it up.
Yeah, I got it up. Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you look under the area factor,
yeah,
you have 7 times 8 times 2, 112 inches squared. Then you have 4 times 5.5 times 2, which you have 40, but it's actually 44.
Oh.
And so when you make that change, it comes out to 1,288 pounds.
Okay.
Or 585.4 kilograms, so to speak.
Okay.
But my question on this is, your formulas deal with the area and the depth of the impression.
It's actually volume.
Volume?
Yeah. Yeah.
So these are volumes.
Yeah. Well, actually, I did it real quick, kind of on the fly because I was at work. And so the first thing I thought was, well, we'll break it down and simplify it because that's what you have to do. And so I just basically looked at the depth of Tobe's compared to the depth of the unknown subject. And then knowing Tobe's weight, it's just a ratio. And, that comes up to get the depth deeper, that it comes out, 506 pounds. Well, that's only one part of the equation because really the subject is displacing a volume of material. Now, we don't need to get into the nitty gritty of trying to figure out what is the true volume because you can't figure that out.
Right.
So you can approximate it with length times width times depth. And actually it's length times width, because we already got the depth, because we figured that out in the first equation. And then there's 2 knees. So, and then that's just another ratio. But you could have put that all together in one equation if you wanted to, and just figured volume and you know, and Toby's weight and volume and the other creature's weight, and it would have come up with the 1,200 and some pounds. So.
Okay. So I put a little thing on my template or my report just on the cast itself, and it's a section called weight calculations.
Right.
And that would probably be something you would need to explain how we came up, how you came up with that in that one section right there.
Okay. All right.
Because you're better at the math stuff than I am.
Okay.
And then I did make the correction in the discussion part that you'll see. Instead of 1416, I got 1288.
Okay.
I did look up contact area, patellar contact area, the tension lines that are seen on the cast that were in the soil substrate on the Owl Moon videos.
Right.
So in my analysis, I cover the temperature that the cast was made out of, as well as the manufacturer recommendations for the fix it all.
Yeah.
So I put all that in there. Then later on, as you get through to the discussion and things like that, I give, you know, basically what the cast is giving me and talk about that. So I try and keep it at just what we got from the cast itself. I kind of excluded the left knee because the detail's not real good.
Okay.
Whereas the right gives us all the nice little hair features and these tension lines that we see in the skin surface. And so that's how I came about my report. So if there's anything you feel like I need to add or check out, just let me know.
So Toby, this report never came through to me. So this is the first time I'm seeing it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll definitely get it to you.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can go refigure that with the correction in there and send that to you guys if you want.
Okay. And the last thing, I was looking at my UW site where I do get all my research stuff from, and I didn't see anything dealing with the knee angle on calculations of this sort. And so I'm just like, well, I'll just leave it be because I can't find anything. I've spent like 2 weeks trying to find this.
Right.
And so that's when I came across the patellar contact surface stuff.
So that's really an unknown. You know, nobody was taking a video of the creature or the subject when it knelt down. So, you know, we don't know, did it come down hard? Did it just kind of slowly get down on its knees softly? You know, all of that can make a big difference. And you would have to be able to duplicate what Toby did compared to what it did, but we just don't know that. So you have to kind of leave that out of the calculation. You know?
Right. And one thing I mentioned to Toby about the site was you can see in the video where the knees are, but as you go down towards, I guess, the road, you can't really make out any toe impressions or foot impressions. And so if the big toe is kind of extended like this here, taking some of that weight off of the knee and the lower leg,
right?
Then, you know, as big as this creature is based on the calculations, we should see some kind of imprint of a toe. But, you know, if you're only seeing the knee, it may be hard to, you know, see that toe.
Sure.
Imprint.
Yeah. And you would have to know how much force it was putting with the toe also. So I just, you know, to simplify something like this, it's basically an educated guess, you know, calculated guess. And, you know, not having all of the variables known, you just have to assume that, well, the way Toby did it is approximately the same way it did it. and you just make that comparison and just let everybody know. That's all it is, really, is a guess. It's not an exact calculation.
Right. And then one of the things I put in my discussion or conclusion was it'd be interesting to compare this to the Skookum cast, especially the knee area.
Oh yeah, yeah.
For comparison as far as size, and maybe doing a calculation on that, you know, for to test out against a known subject.
So
it'd be in the conclusion part.
So what you'd have to make a comparison is somebody do the same thing that the creature did in the Skookum cast in the same material. So, you know, maybe in that same mud hole, have somebody sit like it sat, and then take the measurements and compare the two measurements, and then the known weight of the human who did it versus the weight of the unknown creature who did it. You know, I can get the dimensions of everything you need, you know, might want off the Skookum cast, because Rick Knoll, who owns it, works right downstairs from me. I can see him any day of the week. And he's very helpful with that.
Yeah, and I've tried to reach out to him on my own with no luck.
He's very shy.
So he's going to show up in Auburn, though, right?
No.
Oh, he's not?
No.
Oh, okay. That changed then.
No, you mean at the Sasquatch rendezvous? Yeah, which may or may not happen at this point because of the coronavirus.
Right. A lot of the story here has to do with the supernatural and the paranormal. So this, you know, all this hard work that you poured into this, I would never want to just pour this into a book that's covered with all this supernatural evidence that we amounted and continue to amount. But there needs to be, you know, some kind of separation between the data, the facts as they were, and the story as it unfolded after these knees, you know, were documented. So I don't think I'd have a big issue with you, Scott, in that direction, but I just want to make sure, Joe, you're okay with the fact that this is large in part a supernatural story.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
I think there's a couple of things from my standpoint on the report that would actually make it a stronger report is if we could get some images of like primate knees, the skin surface, to show the lines, these tension lines, present there, and maybe have a couple of pictures to compare what we have with the cast too. I think that would be very, very helpful. The other thing, based on the Skookum cast, is I can't remember. I can see the picture, but I can't remember if there was anything said about footprints at the scene. I mean that they got off of that cast.
Okay, so what they got off that cast basically is the right hip from the buttocks on down to the knee.
Okay.
And then they got the part of the left buttock, and then they got the heel and Achilles tendon, along with the left forearm from the elbow to the hand, and you can actually see the hair striations in that. It looks just like my arm, only it's got more hair. It was pretty interesting.
Was there any of the foot itself?
I don't remember anything from the actual foot. Yeah, bring that one up there, Toby, because I've seen that one in person. Yeah, I went up to visit with John Green, a group of us did, and lo and behold, there's Rick Knoll, and and he was talking about this, and he started talking, and I'm hearing Boeing speak. And I went, "Hey, Rick, did you used to work at Boeing?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, I worked in the 1704 building in Auburn." And I could tell that he was a plaster and plastics guy that knew how to make models, which is how we used to define the airplanes. You make master models and that kind of thing. So I figured, well, they never would have got this if it hadn't been for him being there. Nobody would have known how to do it. So Anyway, so we got.
Whose boot print is that?
I don't know.
But this whole idea was Tom Powell's idea, wasn't it? To lay out a trap of apples in the mud wallow. I thought that was how it went.
I don't remember exactly.
Okay.
I wasn't there.
Yeah.
I'm just remembering the story. There's the Achilles tendon there.
Okay.
The heel and Achilles tendon, which when you look at that in person, it matches up really close to what you would expect the knees to look like with what you cast.
Right. Yeah. So
Yeah.
now Rick has the original copy. Is that what was coming?
Yes. Well, what's more interesting than the original is the casting off the original, which then becomes what you would see if you were looking at the mud puddle.
Gotcha.
Huh. I haven't seen that one. Have they completed that?
Oh yeah, he's had that for years. Yeah.
Huh. I haven't seen that part of it yet.
Yeah. Yeah. What he does is he takes the original cast and then he puts a very thin mold release on it, and then he makes a cast off of that. And then what you get from that is just it's basically the original casting is a negative. And so by making a casting off of that, you get a positive, and you get, which is exactly what it looked like to the people who were there at the time.
News break here. We may have a photograph of the individual of the Al Moon lab. So I'm going to go ahead and show you these images.
Okay.
Now that we've left the area, Darrel has made some more acquaintances. They're definitely of the aper mindset. They're there with game cams, trying to trick them, finding out quickly that doesn't work, especially in this area. Astoundingly enough, you remember Joe Hauser's Rebu footage, Scott?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is what turned up when they put cookies in front of the game cam hanging from the tree. So let me see if I can bring this up. See if this will come up. Okay, so it started off, actually this one is from a couple days ago here, and this is very reminiscent of Les Stroud.
Watch how the cookies disappear in the following picture.
Bingo, gone.
And bring
There's
it back,
the two on the bottom.
and they disappear.
Okay, so that was just a couple days ago, but this is what I'm more interested in, is what happened here. Let's see if this shows up. The guy's name is Mark Parker from Albany, Washington, and the cookies are plainly in view here, and you can see that there is this white glowish image that has this feathering effect that's coming off of the front or the side of it. But then in particular, there is this area here, which I thought was pretty interesting because it doesn't really match the flow. It's a hard line that comes up. So I went ahead and backed that out for us. And let's see if we can bring this one up.
So while you're doing that, let me tell you, we over at our place out by Matlock, we have a stump that we've been putting just rock formations on, and rocks that have little carvings in them that say, love, trust, that kind of stuff, dice, those kind of things. And they would be moved. We'd put them out, leave Sunday morning, and then go back Friday, and everything would be rearranged. And so I thought, well, let's make sure it's not an animal that's doing it.
Sure.
So I put a trail camera out at a place where when you approach that site, you can't see that trail camera. It's about 40 feet away, but you can't see that camera till you're in view of it. And we got pictures of the rock formation, and it would take picture, and then suddenly the rocks would all change, but you never saw what did it. But something came up there and rearranged it without tripping that camera.
Well, that's the astounding thing about this, especially for people that aren't on board with the fact that they can either disarm cameras or walk in front of them without being seen. In this case, I think something was seen. And what's really telling, I think, is this feathering effect coming off here. That's not a reflection or a camera artifact. And, this guy's been elk hunting all his life. Never had an issue with this camera showing up on strange images, but it was reminiscent of what Joe Hauser caught on there. And of course, the cookies here were taken, and a size 15 was found behind where the cookies were taken. So
Yeah.
anyway, Joe, I thought you'd get entertained by that one. That may very well be the subject. Another interesting anecdote about this is the London tracks. Back in 2012, we cast all these footprints, and of course, Cliff and Meldrum are on the side of the fact that it's a hoax. But there are impressions on or near where these cookies are taken that have this detail that the London tracks had, which is this splayed out pinky toe that almost looked like a frog walking. That was the pinky toe and the fourth toe. And there's a couple times when Darrel's up there casting tracks that it looks oddly familiar to what was in the lake bed. So I was kind of leaning to the fact of, maybe it was hoaxed. Who the hell knows? No one ever came forward, but it's sure interesting to imagine that might very well have been one of the individuals, or the very individual that was down there in 2012. So, Darrel wants to know what to do. He's getting a lot of success getting fingerprints and hair and obviously pictures and more casts. But I'm of the mind too, with you, Scott, that now let's talk about who you are, what your name is. Can we engage? How many of you are there? Do you guys need anything? Probably not. And those are very difficult questions to tell extended experiencers that want to walk away with evidence. They still, and I get it, it's kind of a amazing race to get the best footage and get the best stuff, and I still find myself there. But the subject matter has a way of humbling you really quickly, especially alpha males. Yeah. So anyway, that's the latest, Joe.
If you pull up your the feathered bloom again.
Yeah. Let's bring that up. Well, every time I try to bring it up the right way, let's see if it'll come up this way. There we go. Yeah.
And you see the dark linear lines that are extending out away from.
You're talking about these feathering marks
right
here?
there. Now, if you look at the bottom, you'll see there's some dark lines extending up towards the top of the image. Okay, so, but if you look at the spacing between them, it's all the same, same distance.
Well, it's hard to say that for certain without enhancing it maybe a little bit more. They seem to be changing direction as they come from top to bottom, and then they're a little bit tighter.
Kind of curvilinear.
Right, yeah, like the tension ridges, they seem a little bit closer down here than they do, say, in the middle, where they're almost twice as far apart. And then there's absolutely nothing here, which I don't know why that would be. If this, let's say this is photo glare and camera artifact, I would think that there should also be the same effect coming off of these parts here. And why would this be so damn bright? I mean, if it's an IR lens, it shouldn't have an effect. Maybe you guys could speak on this more than me. I haven't messed with game cams a whole lot, but my understanding is IR shouldn't have a flash. It shouldn't have overexposure, right?
No, it can have overexposure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the closer you get to an IR lens, would it be blown out like this?
Oh yeah, yeah. We've got literally 10,000 photos from our place over in Matlock, photo and video, and yeah, when they get really close, it way overexposes.
Okay.
Yeah, and to me, this looks like a refraction pattern from the light going through some hair or something like that.
Explain what you mean.
Well, okay, to simplify it, you've driven down the road in the woods and the sun is low on the horizon,
right?
And you get that flash in your eyes that just drives you nuts.
Yeah.
Okay, that is kind of an analogy to what you have here, with the light going through the hair and in some places, and then hitting the hair and light shining back at you.
Okay.
And it'll make a refraction, probably a refraction pattern due to that.
Would it be so even though? I mean, it looks like it's almost,
Sure.
die casted on there. I don't know.
It may have been that the hair there was all aligned somehow. Um,
Yeah.
let me see. Well, my hair. If I look at the hair on my arm, it tends to align fairly well.
Okay.
It could be. You know, we're all guessing right here. Is
Right.
really all there is to it. You know.
I mean, you can see a little bit of other lineage. I haven't really noticed this till just now. There are other lines on here, and I don't know if that's the camera, if that's what the image is taking a picture of. But anyway, that was the latest, and so this guy's obviously pretty confounded over why he wasn't able to see what took the cookies and why there's a size 15 footprint there.
Doesn't surprise me at all.
So Scott, let me ask you this about the trail cams.
Sure.
I've read and heard it talked about where the modern trail cams, they have this little buzz, infrared buzz that most of the animals in the forest can actually hear. That's which when they were talking about this explains why you have deers coming up to the trail cam and looking right at it.
That's part of the reason. Yeah, I would say that there might be something there. They also can see the light. That IR,
Right.
they can see it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just of a frequency that doesn't bother them at all.
Okay. So that being said, I've always thought when they put the trail cams out like this, that's why we're not catching them on the trail cams, is they're actually able to hear this. And with them being able to communicate in infrasound, which we can hear, that may go a long way to explaining why we're not very successful with the trail cams. Now, that being said, I know a few years back there was some talk about manufacturing trail cams that didn't have that buzz to it. Have they come out with those?
Well, I don't know for sure. I would say that the more money you pay, the better quality you're going to get,
Right.
and probably the quieter it's going to be. That's just a guess. My opinion is that you know, like most animals that are adapted to seeing in the dark, they see a very wide visual spectrum compared to us humans. And I believe that they are seeing maybe the IR detector would be kind of like a beam going out, similar to what we would maybe describe as the way a laser might look if somebody was waving it back and forth. I think they're seeing that. So to them, the trail camera has just got like a big old flashlight, and super easy to see. The fact that it doesn't move and doesn't cause a threat is why the deer and the raccoons and cougars and all that stuff don't really, care about it too much.
Okay.
But we do see them come right up and look right into the camera a lot. But for the most part, once they're really used to it, they just ignore it.
Yeah.
But we do catch other kinds of beings out there that people don't know are there.
I want to hear about those.
Well, we call them the flying rods. In Japan, they call them the skyfish. Picture like an 8-inch long slug about as big around as your little finger with frills down both sides like a sea cucumber, only they can fly through the air with it. The odd thing is, they go flying through the air and they have a very distinctive gait as they go through the air that makes them look completely different from bugs. Bugs look like bugs. These look like something that's flying / swimming through the air. The cool thing is that they will dive right into the earth. I mean, just full power dive right into the earth, just like the earth was water. And, off they go. And we see them, pop up out of the earth and take off and then disappear. And sometimes they just fly by.
Yeah, I've seen people base jumping down into one of the giant holes that they jump into somewhere in South America, and a couple videos of what I would call rods, I guess, joining them for the dive down into the center of the earth. But we haven't caught any rods yet.
Yeah, we get the rods and then we get the orbs.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at thousands of these videos and you see, you can tell rain from snow, from fog and water droplets, that kind of thing. And when you got a completely clear day and you see, or clear night, and you see no movement from any of the tree branches or anything, and then you see these little orbs, and sometimes it's almost like a flock of birds, and they come maneuvering around the tree trunks. Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah, there seems to be a correlation. Are you any closer to figuring out what the correlation is between Sasquatch sightings and light phenomena, Scott?
The orbs are them.
And so they are utilizing light to come out of a plasma state?
Well, they're an energy being,
Yeah.
and we're all an energy being. It's just if you think about how we're made up, most of our body, although it feels solid, is empty space, because that's space between the electrons and that are going around the nucleus of the atom. That's mainly empty space. So it's just the forces of the atomic forces that make us feel solid. I think that they're manipulating the matter at the quantum level and able to make it do what they want to do. So they.
Right. One of Henry Franzoni's theories about all this was related to the fact that sometimes they're attracted to areas that are mimicking Tesla coils, i.e. Darrel's garage, which was kind of a homemade giant amplifier with all the metal coils and electricity running through those. And so you're going to have ghost activity. You're going to have all this other supernatural stuff. And it's kind of a conduit for the weird. That was one of the theories we had, but we never really moved any closer to.
Well, I don't know where you are, Joe, on the weird stuff. It's just it's something you can't force somebody else to believe or to get. You just keep studying this long enough, and pretty soon there's correlations to things, and somebody comes up with an idea or a theory, and then you watch to see if that gets validated down the road, and oftentimes it does. So I've learned to keep an open mind about things that I don't understand, and just wait and see what happens down the road. And if it's something that's real, it'll be validated. If it's not, well, it doesn't. So but what I found is things that people were telling me 10 years ago that I was blowing off as they're crazy kind of a reaction. I found out that I've had to go back and make some apologies because they were actually right.
These are the kind of stuff that's happening in the backyard here in Port Orchard. It's also a hot spot. So this is from last year. I could see it on the viewfinder when we were on one of our night walks, and it just made an appearance. A week later, this showed up in and around the same area, which seems to be some kind of undulating green flowing light anomaly. And of course, this appeared out of the woods, a shaft of light in the middle of the forest.
Portal.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't know what else to do with this stuff except to roll camera. One of the creepier things, Joe, that we caught were these, which were these infused white chalky handprints that we gathered, and they're very childlike. I'll show you this.
Okay, hey, I got something on that.
You do?
So yesterday Susan and I were at the UFO paranormal conference.
Oh, yeah. With Darrel Sims.
Darrel Sims. He had examples of
there they are.
Prints just like that.
Yeah.
That were actually infused into the glass.
Yeah, so Darrel came up to the table when I was there, and I showed him these handprints because we cast them, we documented them. And he said, look at this one. And look at the gappage between. Now, this would be interest to you, Joe, because you're talking about the ligaments. The lack of ligaments here, I think, is really interesting in these two prints. And then the weird gappage between these handprints and how small they were. But you know, when I moved up to Aaron's house, these didn't go away. They showed up again. These were found right outside the cabin, and nobody can account for where these two prints came from. They're kind of in front of the door. And this is the video of the discovery of the... I want you to shine this light on it. Oh, crap. Look at that. Now you get a full appreciation for all those details. What about on that door handle up here?
Right above it.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably worn off by now. The other stuff.
Right. So you know, Darrel, who should be online with us, but isn't for some reason. You know, they lived in a haunted house and dealt with all this stuff before they moved to Cottage Grove. So they had a real easygoing, lackadaisical attitude about the whole thing. Me, my mind was being blown constantly. And then, of course, all the Bigfoot stuff. I was like, you know, if we start comparing apples to oranges, you know, you're not going to be able to go sit at the cool side of the lunchroom anymore. You're going to be trapped in the world of, you know, this crazy guy here and latched on to me. So are you sure you want that? But you know, I think photos like this are totally fascinating, and that's what keeps me out there. Of course, the knee impression. Now here's let me see if I can log this knucklehead in, and then you can hear Darrel's side of things. Hey, I was just telling him how you were normal till you met me.
No, it's like when we showed up out there at the spot.
Yeah, so I was giving him a little rundown about you breaking Mark Parker's cherry down in the Out Moon and showing him this crazy stuff.
Yeah, that guy don't know what to think now.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, you're working the scene there. It's good for you guys to meet Darrel, because I don't want to be the only one to blame for all this crazy stuff. Darrel can accept 50% of the blame.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Cool. Well, so you know, Darrel, this is what we caught up on, and I'll show you this here too. Just bear with me here while I shrink things down. Is that this is Joe Dragoo sitting there in the blue shirt, and of course that's Scott Taylor. Scott was the one that we were always leaning on as far as the weight measurements.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you guys have never officially met, have you?
No, not that I know of.
Nope.
Okay.
But I wanted to go down there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, well,
Just never could work it out.
it might be the safest place to go at this point, but Joe and Scott are still working out the weight distributions, and things are still over 1,000 pounds, which we weren't quite sure. But you know, tell them a little bit about what's going on now that you left.
Oh, now that I left, that I moved from the house?
Yeah, now that you moved from the Al Moon lab, tell them what's going on now.
Oh, I just went out there and I had a guy that had a GPS, and we looked right above the property where I recorded those sounds from. So that's the area that I've been doing the habituation area with, is directly above that house where I recorded the sounds.
Mm-hmm.
And then just everything's still crazy up in there. So.
And what do you find up there when you leave food out? What happens?
Well, everything just vanishes. I mean, you can put a 20-pound rock on something and it's like you just pick the rock up, take the stuff out from under, and put the rock right back down.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to make all kinds of little traps and snares to get hair off of them, and fingerprints, and all kinds of different little things that people give me ideas with. And so I have gotten a few. I've gotten a fingerprint or two, some hair, but they're pretty smart.
Mm-hmm.
Do they leave you some of it?
Do they do what?
Do they leave you a little bit of the food that you leave out?
No, not normally. They take everything.
Well, yeah, tell them about the eggs, because you leave raw eggs out as kind of a generality. What kind of things happen when you leave whole raw eggs?
Yeah, I think now I've been doing it for about 3 to 4 months, and I've put up about, I'm going to say 4 dozen eggs. A couple times they were boiled. The other 2 times they were just raw eggs, brown eggs. And they just completely vanished. There's not a shell or anything. And the last time I went and got some 2-sided tape because Tobe had told me about it. and I kind of made a sling up in a tree with some two-sided tape, and I put the tape all the way around this egg and taped it to it and put it in the sling. You know, I thought, well, they're gonna have to work at it to get that egg out of there, and I stand a chance of getting some hair on that two-sided tape while they're fiddling around getting the egg out. And yeah, they got the egg out, and there is never a shell. It's like whatever gets these eggs just swallows them whole on the spot.
Mm.
So I know a normal animal like a raccoon or bear or whatever, possum, they'd sit there and chew the thing up, or a squirrel,
Mm.
and
Or they leave them in the front of the on the service road coming into the trail, right dead center in the road. So when you
yeah,
drive up to the spot, there's an egg
yeah,
sitting, you know, unbroken in the middle of the road.
yeah,
Any
that's
kind of
Mark Parker.
rocks. Yeah, like there were rocks that a gal left behind that Darrel brought down there, and they stuck them all in the branches of the tree from the 5-foot level to the 6-foot level.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible what he's able to get week to week.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did the thing with a double-sided tape and the bacon grease that you had told me about.
Oh, the fly trap. Yeah.
It looks like I don't know, madrone sapling that's grown out of the ground there is about 10 foot high. So I taped it up as high as I could reach, probably around 7.5 feet up. And then you can see where something, and then I put the bacon grease only on one side of the two-sided tape around the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could totally see where something licked on the tape and then handprints on it. And they reached up onto that sapling probably about 8 to 10 feet with that bacon grease all over their hand. And you can see where they're like the palm of the handprint
Mm-hmm.
where they let go, you know, it's created
Mm-hmm.
like a little suction up there.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see the details of that on that little tree.
Mm-hmm.
And
Just,
you know,
just
licking and fingerprints and all that.
just to explain here real quick, when this photograph was taken by this Mark Parker, he said that either the information on the camera got screwed up somehow, or he didn't reset it. So this time and date is not accurate. I don't even know if the temperature is accurate. I imagine the temperature is accurate, but you know, the electronic anomalies happen up in that area. Weird stuff will happen to your phone, Darrel. Weird
Yeah.
stuff will happen, you know, consistently to electronics.
Yeah, it's weird. It's just that little strip of area right there. I mean, you can go down the road a quarter of a mile, your phone will work. Go up the road a quarter of a mile, your phone will work.
Mm,
It's just a weird spot.
cool.
So would it be plausible to, at the site you just mentioned, get some eDNA?
Like some DNA that from the animal, like
Well, some of that eDNA they're doing now.
Like off the
Think of like-
track, Darrel, the next track you find, can you
Okay.
grab a portion of the track like you would DNA? Just grab bits of the earth.
Okay. Oh, like scoop it up and put it in a baggie or something with a shovel, or
Yeah,
how do
just
they
a,
do that?
well, gloved hand, you know, like treat it sterile with gloved hands, and then
Yeah.
you just collect it, put it in your specimen bag, seal it up, and then we'll have to find a lab that does that. And I know there's that one that's been mentioned on Expedition Bigfoot or whatever it was,
Mm-hmm.
that analyze that stuff. So would that be a possibility we could do at this site?
Oh,
Yeah, I don't see why not. There
Yeah.
was a nice new track there the other day. I put the bacon grease.
Mhm.
yeah, Joe, it's really every week there's some incredible new track. I mean, there's, you know, sometimes 2 or 3 inches deep, size 15, 9 feet apart. And they're so blatantly obvious in the fur and duff at a 90-degree angle, mind you, cutting through the fur duff where, you know, if you cut through on something spongy, it should sponge down, but whatever is coming down with direct pressure is able to cut through that spongy, needly hillside.
So that's
Uh,
TV. You know, that's all they care about is their TV show. They're not really interested in studying Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
They're interested in producing a TV show.
Yeah.
And also, you know, when you talk about DNA testing, that stuff's expensive to do.
Yeah.
And you know, the people that finance the show can probably afford to pay the $10,000 or whatever it is, but most of us, you know,
Yeah.
researchers just can't afford to do that, you know, even if we had a source.
Yeah.
So
Right.
They also give a shout out to whichever lab they're using on television, probably.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
right. Yeah, they get it for free.
Mhm,
Yeah.
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 What else, Darrell? What elevation is this at? What's the elevation
Um,
of the site?
I am not sure. It's London, Oregon. If you look it up on the
Oh yeah.
look up, and then it's probably up above that by 1,000 feet or so, higher, maybe.
So a rough estimate, maybe 3,000 to 4,000 feet.
No, not
I
that
don't know if
high.
it would be that
Not
high.
that high.
No, because you can hear I-5 from the spot, and that's south of the or west of the area. That's
Okay.
something we could look up on Google Earth too, because Darrell, you know
Yeah.
exactly where the spot is, and it gives it elevation on Google Earth.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Okay. Because one thought is once we, document the elevation, this goes back to a conversation I had with one of the guys from the Olympia project, where he said they didn't see any patterns in all the data they had. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, I see the pattern, and I approached him with it. I think I mentioned it to you, Toby,
Mm-hmm.
but we talked and I said, what is it at 3,000 to 4,000 feet? And he said, we don't know. And I says, well, what do they prey on? And he says, well, deer and elk and all this other stuff. And he said, but we can't use that. I said, no, listen to me. If you know what they prey on, the deer and the elk, at 3,000 to 4,000 feet, what is it that their main source of protein feeds on? What kind of grasses are in the area? What kind of bushes and stuff like that? What are they feeding on at that level? And if you look for a pattern based on that, everything kind of makes sense. And I said, based on what I just saw, you presenting, they're not moving anywhere. They're pretty much staying in the same areas. And they're just staying next to the creeks and the rivers, which makes sense. But what is it at those elevations that the deer and the elk are eating? Because they're not moving until those creatures move, because that's their main source of protein. And then he just kind of looked and, well, we'll have to go back and look at it. I never heard from him again. But if you look at what's their prey eating, then all their data made sense.
Real quick here, anybody know how I can find the elevation on Google Maps if I know the approximation of the area? It should.
Yeah, you can toggle over to the terrain feature.
Okay, is that over to the right over here?
It should be over to the left there. If you on the little three little bars there that are next to where it says Razor Road.
Mm-hmm.
See those three bars
Up top.
in the upper left
Oh,
corner.
there we go. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, click on that. Click on terrain.
Okay, terrain.
Up a little bit.
Up.
There it
down.
is.
There you
I
go.
gotcha.
Terrain. Okay, that'll switch it over. You should be able to zoom in and see contour lines. So I noticed in the image there's a power line.
Mm-hmm.
They like
Yeah.
to follow power lines, so that's an easy travel route for them.
So
Yeah,
this one,
that power line runs almost the whole state of Oregon. I know it's down in Lewisburg area also.
Yeah.
there's your 800 foot. So in between 800 and 1,100 feet, I would think max would be what we're talking about, Joe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Is there any gravel pits around there?
No, but there was a spring nearby.
There's a gravel pit up on top where people go and sight their guns in.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay. Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
They like that. Are there any fish hatcheries?
Well, what happens is during the summer months is Cottage Grove Lake there, the
Mm-hmm.
reservoir.
Mm-hmm.
They plant trout in that thing, and they're
Okay.
like big trout. And the river that runs right there, the Coast Fork of the Willamette,
Mm-hmm.
it runs right in front of the area where we lived and right below the area. those fish, as soon as they hit the lake, they run right up that cold water in that river because the lake's warm in the summer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
At a coast fork is, still snow melting from way up in the Cascades. And those big old trout, they just run up there and get in all the holes.
Mm-hmm.
They're in the river right there. So they come down and we heard them splashing in the water. The neighbor did, and sound like they were fighting with logs down there, beating on things. And it sounded like a bunch of monkeys raising a big old ruckus.
There's even some archaic writing that Darrell found within walking distance from where the knees were cast, and he took a photograph of it, and it looks like language. It looks like writing in the mud. There's a stick laying in the mud too. It could be gobbledygook, but it was surely one of the more interesting things to look at. And if they can speak, I think they have a language. I think they can do a whole lot more than that. But it was one of the more interesting things. Maybe they're trying to tell us a name. I don't really know, but
Yeah.
we
Also,
never really. He never ran short of evidence. It's evidence overload for Darrell. I mean, it was the place that somebody like a Les Stroud or a Robert Bigelow type should have purchased to have as a full-time research area and just buy up a chunk of land and begin to enjoy it. But
We're going to camp for a week or a month.
yeah. But we got to get you guys up there, and now that the weather's getting better, now is the perfect time to do it. And maybe sometime in April, if this virus doesn't go absolutely nuts, which I assume it is. Everything I've read says it's going to go nuts. But I am going to go back on a weekend in April, and if you guys want to come, then that's the next opportunity, and we can make a weekend of it.
And the
Only
food
thing
source,
go ahead.
the food source you were talking about for the animals.
Uh-huh.
There's berries everywhere, of course, like everywhere in Oregon, blackberries, all the different berries. There's apple trees everywhere there. There's pear trees. And right across the river, there's a nursery, and the guy grows just all kinds of, I think there's 40 acres of plant stock that he grows over there, like little potatoes and tomatoes, and he ships them all over the place.
Uh-huh.
So there's just a 40-acre field of all kinds of different vegetables and he has greenhouses that pretty much grow all year long over there
Mm-hmm.
Perfect for them.
across the river.
Yeah.
Right. Just to show this real quick, this is one of the examples of them coming down to Darrell's property. While I was at work, I'd leave out the recorder. Darrell would leave out a recorder. And when I got home from work, there was a trail of blackberries going from underneath my awning, which is about 7 feet up, and going out to the tree line. So I went to the recorder, and this is what we caught. So you're going to hear something chew. Now it's going to go into this. It'll loop again here one more time with what we're calling a blackberry sneeze. And coming underneath the awning, as I walked underneath there, dripping down from underneath it was a good 8-inch long strip of blackberry juice, which was aspirated, I assume, upwards as this thing was enjoying itself after I went to work. So it's ample stuff. Come enjoy.
Yeah, you can hear the river running too in the back.
Right.
Can you replay that?
Oh, sure. So it's broken up into 2 different sections. Dave Ellis did the loop process with the sneeze, but the beginning would just be the first clip of something, I believe, chewing up close next to the recorder, which is in front of the door on a rail, and you have to go a good, I don't know, what do you think, Darrell, 7 feet behind the front door to where the blackberries were behind the trailer. So that's maybe an important detail. There really wasn't anything else up front for this thing to eat near the recorder. Oops. Whatever. Two different clips. And of course,
So-
the sound like that, when you play it inside your car stereo, that's the kind of sound that you feel as much as you hear, which was always what we were looking for, was this percussive quality, which, Scott, you probably know
Right.
what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this thing was close to the ground, going after blackberries.
Oh, we didn't have any evidence of that.
But it
Oh.
left blackberries all underneath your awning and like a trail over to the
Oh,
west.
yeah. So it'd get really close to where I was sleeping, because that's where it would leave the gifts, is right in front of the window, or urinate in front of the window, or do whatever it wanted to do.
Oh yeah, that was
Um,
crazy. I remember that.
Right. It got to the point where it became such an ordinary thing that sounds like this were happening all the time. Yeah. I mean, what else do you say but say that sounds a lot like what Sasquatch probably sounds
Mhm.
like, according to the Sierra sound. So,
So a
it was
week
amazing.
ago, Saturday, I was out at my Matlock place and took a break from spreading drywall mud, and took the dog down to the gravel pit, which is about a quarter mile away. And we got down there, and the dog started getting very upset and growling and barking at stuff, and foam coming out of her mouth and everything. She was just very animated. And then I hear whoop, and then that same kind of talking, and then another individual off to about 100 yards to the left answered with a whoop, and some more of that talking, and then the sticks breaking back in the trees, and that was typical Squatch stuff. It was clear enough like that if it was English, you'd have understood what they said, but it wasn't English. It was
Right.
what I would expect Squatches to sound like. So,
Yeah, and you know, the kind of impressions, Joe, that they would leave in the gravel were really weird. I wasn't used to seeing what I would call gifted impressions. It was like, well, we can walk through gravel without making a sound, but if you really want to see our footprints, here you go. This is impacted into the hard pan. You know, this is really deep. If you scrape away that gravel, it's nothing but dirt hard pan. So everything you see here has been vibrated down into the substrate. You know, plain as day to me is a right foot, and you know, it couldn't been hoaxed. That's the weird thing, is that there's no way you could sit there and vibrate all these rocks down into the hard pan. So
It almost looked like it had sticky feet and it stepped down and took the rock away with it.
right,
Right.
right.
It was weird.
Yeah, that's another way to look at it. Yeah. Well, shoot, guys, I'm gonna have to go make some dinner. I appreciate everybody coming on, and Darrell, do they have a standing invite to come down
I'm
anytime they
sure
want?
always. I mean, I'm always want to know what's
Yeah.
down there.
And I don't have to be a part of it. So if you guys just want to go down, now
You
you know. Yeah. Can they just look you up, Darrell, if they want to come down without me?
Yeah, anytime.
Okay. Yeah. I don't have to be a part of it. So feel
that
free to reach out.
might be a fun side trip. My mother-in-law lives in Grants Pass.
Yeah,
Okay.
you go right by here coming down 5.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool, guys. All right. Well,
Okay.
I appreciate it, and I guess I'll send that report to you, Scott, and then
Okay.
you're gonna fine tune it first, Joe, before I do, and then I'll send it to you, Darrell, and
Okay.
then I think that was it, dude.
So,
Okay,
okay.
before you guys go, I just found the sound, so you have to hear this one because
Okay.
this one Darrel recorded, and it's the craziest vocal I think he got. So let's play this one.
I heard so many.
That's a good one.
It loops again here. Listen to the timbre.
There's actually about 3 minutes of that one too. That
There's more
Yeah.
of that to it,
Yeah,
but that's all that David Ellis looped
Yeah.
right there.
so yeah, reach out to Darrel. I'll give all his contact information. Can they just call you too, Darrel, if they want?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm usually around.
All right, guys, I
Okay.
gotta go.
Hey.
I thank you much.
All right, you guys
All right.
take care.
You too.
Bye.
All right, bye.
All right.